Hey everyone, welcome to this module. In this module, we'll be talking mainly about modules, actually. But in order to kind of understand why we're doing modules, we're going to do a quick review of scope first. So the first thing these first few videos will do is just kind of review the different kinds of scope and the problems of what will happen as our programs get bigger. So let's get started. We've got a basic HTML file here, a JavaScript file, no problem. Let's go ahead and make some variables. So const name equals Michael, and we'll constant.log name. So the first type of scope, again, this should hopefully be a review, is our global scope. Global scope meaning that the variables and functions we declare are global. They can be accessed from anywhere. So I've declared a variable name and I logged it, and 1,000 lines down I can also log it no matter how much code is in the way or whatnot. And so that was the default, that's the default scope of JavaScript. You make variables, you make functions. They are accessible anywhere, including inside of other functions. So I could log the name in here. And actually, let's do it like this so it's kind of fun. And if I make another function, I can call the function in there, and all that shows. So that's one type of scope, the global scope. Our second type of scope is our local scope. So that's if I take, say, a parameter. Let's call it. All right, let's just make a new function. So this function add has two parameters, x and y, and I can call add with some arguments. But if I were to try to access those arguments outside of the scope of that function, it would fail. I'd get x is not defined because x and y are local to this function. Imagine like a fence surrounding the add function. And that fence, you can reach out of the fence and access global variables, but the global scope can't reach into there and grab those variables. Let's just make a random variable. And we cannot access a variable declared in a function either. So again, hopefully that's just, let's get rid of those because it won't even get to that. Random number's not defined. So stuff in the local scope can't be accessed in the global scope. And hopefully that makes sense. These were the only two types of scope that JavaScript had for a long time. So before ES6, we only had global scope and local scope, and so local scope was often used to encapsulate different levels of scope in a weird way. It was kind of a hack, honestly. So, all right, ES6 brought a new type of scope called block scope, and so let's talk about block scope. And I'm gonna bring this for loop down here, and we'll use it. So I have this let I equal 0 in this for loop. Now, the for loop is not a function, so it doesn't have local scope, but The let and the const keyword, variables declared with let and const have what's known as block scope. So block scope is referring to any set of curly braces, not just ones that are function related. So in this for loop, in the context of this for loop, let I is block scoped to the for loop. If I try to console log I outside the for loop, I'm going to get I is not defined. But if that would have been declared with a var, vars don't have a block scope. So var variables is here. I'm logging 10 because I, after this for loop is run, has a value of 10 and it's accessible out here. So block scope locks it down a little bit and prevents some different types of errors. And block scope applies to for loops, any sort of block, code blocks. So if I have like a variable, very common to have something like this. If name is equal to Michael, we could have like var instructor equals true, else var instructor equals false. So with a var keyword, you were, even though I was inside of a code block, you're declaring variables in the global scope, and I could access those variables outside of scope. And for people coming from other programming languages, that's very weird because block scope is the standard pretty much across most programming languages. However, if I change these vars to a let, I will get reference error instructors not defined. And so the way that we'd code this now with the let keyword is declaring let outside of the if statement, so that inside it would just get assigned that value, and then this will now work properly. So that's a quick review of the 3 different types of scope that we have in JavaScript. And the next lecture we'll talk about the kind of problems and limitations we have that come with this idea of global scope. So thanks for watching.